Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So I dropped a few things in the chat. So as you're coming in, can you please introduce yourself, name, pronouns, classification, and hometown? We're going to get started in just about 2 minutes. Okay, Louis, Kentucky. Jackson, Tennessee. Good morning. Oh, so a lot of y'all from Kentucky, I see. Okay, Brooklyn. Good morning, everybody. If you're just joining, please check the chat, introduce yourself, name, pronouns, classification, and hometown. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. Okay, Houston, Memphis. So nobody from Atlanta? I don't see that yet. Okay, Miami. I don't see Atlanta yet. Somebody have to be from Atlanta. Indiana. Okay. I can't breathe. Okay, there we go, Atlanta. I've been waiting on you. Good morning. Jackson, Mississippi, Cincinnati. Okay. So I'm seeing we have people from all over. No one from Cali. No Chicago. All right, y'all. So we don't have much time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So good morning, everyone. This is a little awkward because I can't see myself or y'all. I can only see my PowerPoint. So, y'all have to work with me. But here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Rishard Butts. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I moved to Washington, D.C. in 2012, where I went to Howard University. That was a bit of a journey for me. I started out as an engineering major, switched to economics, and then ended up switching to the School of Education, where I finished with a bachelor's in science in human development and psychoeducational studies. Currently, I am the manager of the HBCU program at the Human Rights Campaign. I know many of you may not be familiar with the Human Rights Campaign. Some of you may be. I'm going to go over that in 1 second. Past experiences, I have interned and worked for DC Public School System. I also worked at Howard University for about 1.5 years after I graduated. And now I'm at the Human Rights Campaign. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, as I mentioned. I identify as a Black, gay, cisgender male. Some of my core values are right there listed: community, integrity, service, and courage. And these are my social media handles. If anyone would like to take time to follow me, I'll also share all of this again at the end. So what we're going to talk about today, really quickly, I'm going to give you an overview of HRC. We're going to do a quick thinking exercise and give a very brief LGBTQ 101 for those who may not be up to speed. We're going to talk a little bit about what Allyship is, what it looks like. We're going to talk about some of campus events and engagements and how we can start to embed allyship in those things. and then what benefits in building an inclusive campus looks like. At any time, if there are any questions, please feel free to use the chat as I'm going. I'm trying to see if there's 1 second. I want to see if there's a way that I can still end the chat and all of these stuff. So can y'all see this? Someone say yes in the chat for me. Oh, sorry, I'll go back to the Instagram 1 second. Okay. Is this big enough though, the presentation screen? Like for y'all to see the content and stuff? Someone say yes in the chat for me. No? Okay, gotcha. So what I'll do is just take myself out. Don't worry about it. So I'll just click out to check the chat every few minutes. For the Instagram, _Rishard, RISHARD. For Twitter, _Rishard, MQL. So real quick before we get started, want to make some assumptions, some level setting, make sure we're all on the same page. These are real quick affirmative statements in the chat. I need all of y'all to hop in and say yes. You agree to each one of these. We all want to do our best to represent TSU, support our classmates and colleagues, and work to make the world a better place. If that's a yes for you, just hit yes in the chat for me. We're all coming from different life experiences and levels of knowledge and comfort. If we all agree, hit yes for me in the chat. And learning happens at the edge of our comfort zones, and this conversation could and should be uncomfortable for some of us. And if we all agree to that, just hit yes in the chat for me. So real quick before we start, Human Rights Campaign, what is HRC? I know many of you probably have seen this logo as a sticker. A lot of people put it on the back of their cars, on stop signs, wherever you might see it. HRC is the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization in the world. We operate solely in the United States, but we are the largest organization in the world in terms of membership and resources. We are divided into our HRC, which is our political work, which is our 501c4, excuse me. And then we have our foundation. And the foundation is the side of HRC that I work on. That's where we have all of our research, our trainings, our programs, where we're working with schools, churches, businesses, you name it. We do that. All with the mission of advancing LGBTQ equality, making sure that people have basic equal rights, can live open, honest lives, and just be who they are wherever they are. The HBCU program, this is where I come in. We work specifically with HBCUs, right? With the goal is enhancing policies that promote excellence in LGBTQ inclusion, equity, and engagement. The reality is there are a lot of LGBTQ people on any campus, but specifically HBCUs they don't always feel welcome, they don't always feel safe, they don't always feel included. So unfortunately, a lot of people hide who they are or just show up at different times, their full self. So we work essentially to make sure that we're advancing education, advancing inclusion, and make sure everyone can be safe and affirmed on their campus. How we do that through a myriad of ways. We have our capacity building for staff and faculty. We have a proud alumni network. We have leadership development opportunities for students. We have a lot of HIV and HBCU work where we work with another program at HRC to do this work. And then we have a Seal of Excellence program that's pretty much going to rank HBCUs on how inclusive they are for LGBTQ people. And that'll be launching next year. I'm going to skip this video. I'll post a link in the chat, but I realized that the session is only like an hour long and this video is like 3 minutes. So I'm gonna skip this and come back to it. Really quickly, we're gonna hop to another exercise. This is interesting. So, really quickly, I'm not sure if you've used Menti before, but if everyone can pull out your phone or open a tab in your computer and go to www.menti.com. And at the top, it's going to ask you to enter a code. You'll see the code at the top. It's 6941646. The first question should pop up on your screen, and it's how are you feeling this morning? So this is a test. So just go ahead and drop how you feeling this morning. I mean, be honest. If you're tired, say you're tired. If you're hungover, say you're hungover. If you're sleepy, sleepy. If you're engaged, you're engaged. But again, the website is www.minty.com. I'm weak, sleepy because it's raining. So as you type your response and submit it, you'll see it pop up. So someone said Russian. Okay. Hungry. Me too. The code is 6941646. Overwhelmed. Oh yeah, I bet. That's a lot going on in one day. Anxious. Okay. Sleepy. Okay, so this one is just a test, y'all, but we're gonna hop back. We're gonna go to the next question, just for the interest of time. So really quickly, before we get started, I want you all to rate your knowledge on LGBTQ identities, concepts, and terms. So each one of these are gonna have like 5 different points. So on the end to the left is strongly disagree. So this one is gonna be disagree. The middle is gonna be neutral, and then it's gonna be agree, and then strongly agree. So as you go down, you'll just click for each one where you stand. Each one of these, you'll do it for each row. So I know different sexual orientations. You'll rate kind of your knowledge. There we go. We have 4 responses so far. The code again to the Minty is 6941646. If there's anyone who can't get in or having trouble, let me know. The website is Minty, MENTI.com. All right, so we're gonna take one more minute. We're gonna move on. All right, next question. What do you hope to learn from this session? So for this one, just as an open-ended question, just type, whatever you hope to learn. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could really just be one thing that you just really want to learn today. Or from this session, sorry. How to be a better informed ally. Okay, we're gonna get that. Be a better ally. Okay. How to be an effective helper. Okay. How to be a more productive member of the LGBTQ and help other members of the LGBTQ on campus. Okay. Understand different perspectives. Okay, that's a good one. So if you're still here, you can keep your responses coming. I'm going to hop out of this and go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so real quick thinking exercise. Think of someone on your campus. Can be anyone you know. For a minute or two, consider everything you know about this person. Their relationship status, their children, if they have any, or parents or siblings, political beliefs, education, where they used to live, where they've been to school, any sports or hobbies they're engaged in. But then also consider any activities that you all do together, right? Do you get lunch together, coffee? Do y'all study together? Go to basketball games, different events on campus, etc. What are some things we know about our other friends and coworkers, right? Like hometown, families, hobbies, travel. And how do you generally feel about these things, right? Like, for the most part, are these things positive? Are they negative? Are they neutral? Just consider all of this. And now we have to realize that everyone shares their non-school related attributes with the campus, the entire campus, right? So it's not just me with my economics hat on. It's me with my economics hat on, being Black, being gay, being a Christian, being from the South, right? Being from a single parent household, being low income. All of these layers are coming together to make me who I am. And all of these things walk across the campus with each and every one of us, right? We all bring our own beliefs. We all bring our predispositions. We all bring our preferences. And all of that shows up through our interactions and relationships on campus. Now imagine, right? And for many of us, we don't have to imagine because in some way this is our existence. But imagine having to hide a slice of who you are because you were afraid of being mistreated or being rejected, being harmed on campus. And in real life, this shows up as being rejected from organizations, not gaining access to competent health care at the student health center, not being able to have roommates that identify similarly to how I do. Like all of these things show up, or just having professors and people call you by the wrong name, right? Like these are ways that this stuff shows up on campus. And it ultimately translates to not feeling seen, not being supported, and not feeling safe on campus. So really quick, we're gonna hop into the LGBTQ 101. This is going to be quick and brief because this is not the main focus of this, but I do believe we're going to be working with Dr. Morgan and Student Life to do some more of these trainings with the entire campus throughout this year and next year. So all of this stuff, hopefully you will see again at some point. Sorry. So sexual orientation. This may not be new to many of us. I'm actually gonna hop out real quick just to see if there's any questions so far. No questions in the chat? Everyone's on the same page so far? All right, cool. So sexual orientation. A person's emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to another person. Sexual orientations include lesbian, right? We might be familiar with that. Lesbian is generally a woman who's attracted to a woman. A person who identifies as a woman being attracted to a person who identifies as a woman. Gay is the same as that, but essentially it's men. Folks who identify as men being attracted to someone who identifies as men. Gay also can be used interchangeably for lesbians. Some lesbians call themselves gay. Bisexual is a person who's attracted to both man and woman, and that is essentially considered on a binary scale, meaning there is one or the other. Bisexual people are attracted to both of those. Straight, we all know what straight is, someone who's attracted to the opposite gender. Asexual is someone who, so asexual is a spectrum. So when you hear the word asexual, do not completely think absence of sex because that's not true. Usually it means that, I mean, on one end of the spectrum, that is true. But on the other end of the spectrum, it could be that there's so many caveats in place that sex is the last thing on my mind, right? And pansexual is someone who's attracted to or open to all genders, right? Love comes first. I'm connected to the person and not necessarily the body parts or what you have to offer. I'm connected to you. I'm looking for a match in your spirit, your energy, and who you are as an individual. So exploring SOGI. So SOGI is sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. It's an acronym that people are using these days. So the sexual orientation or sexuality side of this includes sexual attraction, sexual identity, sexual behavior, right? That's sexual attraction, sexual identity, and sexual behavior. Gender, on the other hand, is sex assigned at birth, gender identity, and gender expression. And we're about to break all this out really quickly, but I need you to understand, a lot of people hear the LGBTQ umbrella, right? And they lump it all together as gay. That's not true, right? LGBTQ is a compilation of sexual orientation and gender identities, right? We're gonna dig in a little bit more. So gender identity. A person's internal sense of being male, female, a blend of both, or neither, right? So male, male, female, female. Gender queer, that means someone who, right? Queer means different. So gender queer is someone who, right? Like, first of all, before I get into this, I also need you to understand that everyone chooses their identities and their own reasonings behind them and have their own explanations, right? So whenever you look at a textbook definition for any of these words, that might not apply for everyone. So also be open to that and understanding that. But genderqueer is essentially someone who's fluid. They don't believe they're male, they don't believe they're female. It could be that one day they feel like they're male, or that is what's, like taking the precedence for the day. And one day it's not, or the next day they might not be neither, next day they might be both at the same time. Non-binary is someone who does not believe that our lives exist on a binary scale, meaning they don't believe that there is only male and female. It could be in between, it could be more than that. They just are they're opting to do away with the binary system that our society has kind of created for gender construct. Two-spirit, Two-spirit is usually connected to Native and Indigenous people. Agender is, again, absence without sex. They feel like they're completely absent of any of these gender identities. And transgender is someone who, we're going to get to that on the next slide, actually. I'm sorry. But transgender is someone who was born one sex at birth and they do not identify with that. So if I was born, I came out, the doctor smacked me on the butt, told my mom I was a boy, but now I'm 6 years old and I'm telling my mom I'm not a boy. I know with everything in me that I'm a girl. I do not align with the sex assigned at birth, therefore I'm considered transgender. Gender expression is simply how we perform our gender, how all this shows up, right? So on the left, we have Young Thug. On the right, we have Jaden Smith, right? They both are wearing, what appears to be very feminine clothing and items, but they're men. As far as we know, publicly, as far as I know at least, I don't know what y'all know, but as far as I know, they both are considered straight men. How they perform their gender does not necessarily align with their sexual orientation, but they're still straight men expressing their gender in a feminine way, or what we as society consider feminine. So cisgender, this is a word that people are kind of becoming familiar with recently, I guess. Cisgender means sex assigned at birth equals your gender identity. I consider myself cisgender. I came out, the doctor said I was a male, I consider myself a male. Transgender, on the other hand, is someone whose sex assigned at birth does not align with their gender identity currently. So I could have been born a boy or a male, came out, doctor said I was a boy, and I could now be non-binary, I can be gender fluid, I can be gender queer, I can be two-spirit. Any of that does not align directly with me being a male would consider me transgender. I do not have to have any surgeries. I do not have to do any reassignments. I could literally look like this and consider myself transgender. Language tips real quick. Transgender is okay. Trans is okay. Transgendered is not okay. And tranny is never okay. Transgendered, while that's wrong, is because transgender is an adjective to describe somebody. It's not a verb. The action to transgender is transition. So transgender folks transition. I'm gonna hop out real quick just in case we have some questions. I do want to make sure everyone's on the same page. All right, so while we're here real quick, any questions, any chat, anything we need clarity on, feel free to use chat. If there are no questions, can you use the chat and just be like, I'm good, I'm okay, thumbs up, something, so I know we all on the same page. Is this new information for any of y'all so far? If this is new information, okay, seeing thumbs, I'm good. Okay, so we're gonna keep moving in. So again, just a real quick overview of everything I just talked about. And again, this is a one-on-one. It gets very deep. We can have many conversations about all of this stuff. And the beauty of it is everyone comes to this from a different perspective. So as we begin to share and discuss, we begin to learn and become more open. But if you start with the second one, the blue, gender identity is a person's internal sense of being man, woman, or anything in between or neither, right? So this is, I know who I am, I believe who I am, I know it, I feel it. Orientation is who I love. That's who I am attracted to, right? That's in the heart. Sex alone is anatomy. That's the parts that came on your body when you were born, right? People have one part, people have both parts, some people have neither parts. However, sex and gender are not the same. Gender expression is how all of that shows up, right? So all of these different parts can look so many different ways, and how I walk out into the world and express it, that's my gender expression. So let's slide over real quick and let's get into, we're about to get into the allyship part now. So HRC, we did a youth report where we surveyed about, I believe it was about 12,000 LGBTQ people in 2017. And they were all between the ages of 13 and 17 at the time. Some of you may have been included in this, but all of these, like y'all are probably now in the age range when this happened. So you may know somebody who done this, you may not. From this larger report, we produced an overall report. We produced one for Black and African Americans, for Latinx, Asian Pacific Islanders, and different demographics. This, what I'm showing you right now, is specific to Black youth from our Black youth report. So these are y'all's classmates, these are y'all's friends, these are families within the same age range. These are the experience that they've had growing up. And I'm just gonna read through some of them, not all of them. And if you are someone that is open and LGBTQ and comfortable putting in chat if any of this resonates with you or looks like your life experience, then please feel free to drop that, but no pressure. But if you are someone who is not LGBTQ and all of this is extremely shocking to you, please drop that in the chat. I just want to know your thoughts and feedbacks around this slide. But I mean, obviously I'm gonna start on the left. 90% have experienced racial discrimination. That's not really a shocker for any of us. We all, like, as a Black person, right? However, 90% of us, or these young people at the time, have had trouble getting to sleep at night. And this question was specific to like in the past 30 days. So 90% of all of the Black youth who responded to this said they had trouble sleeping at night. 40% of all of them have been bullied on school property within the last 12 months. Only 35 of them can be themselves in school. Only 35% of them can be themselves in school, right? Like, so what does that mean? Like, what kind of culture and climate is that creating? 77% of Black and African-American LGBTQ youth have heard family members say negative things about LGBTQ people. Your own family. 20% have received information about safer sex that applies to them and the way that they engage in sex. And for trans folks on the right and the bottom, 50% of them never use the restroom that aligns with their gender identity at school. 63% of trans youth avoid using the restroom all day at school. Imagine being in school and not using the bathroom, right? So what does this mean? This means that Black LGBTQ students are coming to college with their suitcases and they're bringing all of their stuff with them, right? Their experiences, their past, their trauma, their hurt, their pain, but also the good. But we also have to like really shed a light on the negative. They're bringing family rejection, bullying and stigma, little information about health, isolation, no welcoming spaces, lack of competent physical, mental, emotional support, trauma, and ultimately just the inability for them to be fully authentically themselves, right? On top of the stuff that us as Black people carry with us on a regular, the racial discrimination, some of us being low socioeconomic background, diverse family structures, single family homes, being raised by grandparents, all of these other things. The list goes on for what Black families look like and deal with. But for me, a lot of this stuff on this previous slide was my reality. So me going to college, I didn't know, like, what does that look like for me, right? So I had to make college my place to go and kind of like transform and blossom into the person I am today, right? Why does this matter? Because ultimately, students who show up on your campus and they can't be themselves, they're either going to leave or they're going to hate it, right? But that also shows that your campus have bigger problems because this goes further than the LGBTQ thing, right? If an LGBTQ person can't feel comfortable on campus, then a poor person might not feel comfortable on campus. Then a person with a disability might not be comfortable on campus, right? Like all these other things might just show the different fractions of how your campus is just separated and not supporting full inclusion for everyone. So what's an ally, right? We use this, we heard this term, we learned about this in like social studies, allies, the United States have allies over there and all this other stuff. But essentially an ally in this context is a person who does not identify as LGBTQ, but is very supportive of LGBTQ individuals in the community, right? And this could be through personal support, or it could be like out loud and proud as an advocate. Usually they identify as straight. However, I'm a cisgender person, so I'm considered an ally to the trans community because that's not my community, right? Yes, the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, like it's an overarching umbrella. But even in that, we have our own defined roles and communities. So I'm considered an ally as a cis person to a trans person. So that's how allies kind of take form. So straights are allies to LGBTQ people, can be allies to trans people as well, but cisgender people in particular are usually allies to trans people. So accomplice, right? So we use this word, we have an ally, but allies are great. We need allies, but we also need accomplices, right? And usually when we hear the word accomplice, it's associated with some kind of negative, right? Like, oh, it was an accomplice to a murder or an accomplice to an armed robbery. But I'm looking for accomplices to dismantling this system of oppression, right? I'm looking for accomplices who are going to make sure they're advocating for me when I'm not in the space, or making sure they're building opportunities with me, right? Like I'm looking for someone who's going to show up when I'm not there, right? Like, so accomplice, let me know where you stand and always stand there. Be unwavering, be steadfast in this, right? Because what we see from allies is that they're there when it's convenient, they're there when they need to be sometimes, but is it always? Is it consistent? Is it constant, right? Is it steadfast? So that's what we throw in there. That's what I'm throwing in there, accomplice. So yeah, it's great to be an ally. We need allies, we love allies. But also, when you can and when you're ready, we need you to join the team of being an accomplice. So really quick, we're gonna go back to the Minty because I think it's time to have just a tad bit of conversation around allyship. One second. Okay. We're gonna come back to that. What are some barriers preventing folks from being an ally? All right, so this is what I want to know from y'all. So for the folks who said you want to learn more about being an ally, what do you think are some barriers preventing people from being an ally? And people who may be a part of the LGBT community and you've seen folks not step up as ally, what do you think was the barrier preventing them from doing that? So we're back on the Minty, minty.com. The code 6941646. And I'm looking for maybe 2 or 3 answers for this one. Not being properly informed, Scared of being judged. Okay. Fear of being viewed as gay. The backlash they receive. Okay. And if you have any more, keep going. I'm not going to stop just because we got to 2 or 3. But like, if you have any more, people may not be an ally because they're afraid of their own community. Oh, yes. Because my next question is, especially in the time of like the racial climate that we're in now, we're looking, especially us as Black people, we're looking for all of these white allies. But we seem to forget that at times our own community is divided. And people within our own community are looking for allies that are right next to us who look just like us, and we often can't find them. People are scared of being vulnerable. Right. Okay, so next question. What are some barriers preventing your campus specifically, from leaning into full LGBTQ inclusion? Like, what do you think is stopping TSU right now from just, being the most welcoming space for LGBTQ students? Holding on to traditions. Okay. The judgment from uninformed students and staff members. Okay. So whoever typed the judgment from uninformed students and staff members, I don't know if it allows you to type a second one, but answer this for me or in the chat box. Do you think it's more uninformed students and staff, or more informed students and staff that just don't care or don't say anything? Like, which one do you think outweighs? I think people carry some sort of frustration from not understanding, others completely useless against them. Correct. Conversation is sexually due to self and community judgment. Correct. More uninformed students and staff. Okay. Okay, so it's one more that I skipped. We're gonna come back to it if we have time. So more uninformed students and staff. So we're gonna dig into that a little bit more too. So who are our allies and accomplices, right? Everyone, essentially, our classmates, our coworkers, our mentors and mentees, our parents and siblings, our organization members, if you're in any org and all that other stuff. Sometimes these people are expected, the ones that your friends, your close friends who, might you confide in at times about the challenges you're having, but then it also might be the ones that are completely unexpected. But if you walk away from anything from the folks that are trying to be allies, I want you to remember this: you don't have to be LGBTQ to campaign for LGBTQ rights. You don't. And you also don't have to worry about the backlash. You don't none of that really matters in the long run. What can allies do? And this is where we get into what you can do. Be supportive, right? Support looks however you want it to look, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you these are the 3 ways that you have to support. No. Support and show up how you can, right? Support could be giving, advice, could be listening, could be giving that hug. We're social distancing virtual right now, so no hugs. But support could be any of that. It could be just on the phone late at night, listening to a problem, right? It could be checking in. Hey, how are you? I haven't heard from you in a while. You okay? It could be, if you have the financial resources, to support an LGBTQ student in need, or a young person, right? Or give to an organization that is doing the work. Support can look however you want it to, but your first step can be supporting. Speak up, especially as students, but especially as student leaders. You all see, and if you don't see, you can hear the challenges, the incidents, the problems that occur with different people on campus, different types of people, different groups, different whatever, right? Use your platform and your voice to speak up against it, right? And I'm not saying go yell at the administration about X, Y, and Z, but you have friends who you can just spark the conversation and see where it goes. Because leaning in one space literally can create a ripple effect where you could start a conversation with a group of 3, and each one of y'all could start a conversation with a group of 3. And by the end of the time, the whole campus has had the whole conversation. And it's like, okay, well, it's time to do something about this. Advocate. This might be the part where you go up to you go to SGA, you go to your administrators, you go to community leaders, you go to church, you go wherever you have to go. But you advocate, right? And you use your platform as a straight person and you say, hey, or an ally, and say, hey, these are the experiences that these folks are having. This is a solution I think we can bring. We work together. This is what we think could work. This is what we want to happen. Let's see how we can make this happen. Let's advocate for these changes. And change hearts and minds ultimately. And that, I think I put that in red and underlined because that's the most important part. You can do all of these things, right? But these are only like, be supportive. That's going to help on a personal, direct level. Changing hearts and minds is going to help change society, going to help change the culture, right? Because you're literally, that goes back to that whole informed piece, that uninformed, uneducated piece. Changing hearts and minds, they don't even have to have the language or the literature, the technical information. But if you can convince someone that I matter because I'm gay, because X, Y, and Z, and you've changed their heart and changed their mind, that's more beneficial in the long run, in some cases, than advocating for a policy or speaking up against X, Y, and Z. 10 tips for allies. 1, be open. Like I said, when I was doing the LGBTQ 101, some of these terms, first of all, me and my roommate is gay. We have running jokes all the time about the alphabet. LGBTQ, ABZYZ. Like, we literally, like, it's so much and it changes so often. We're updating languages and all of that. So be open, because my use of the word gay might be different. My use of this might be different. But we all generally have kind of shared experiences. So be open to learning, be open to listening, be open to loving, but just in general, be open. Educate yourself. It's so much to learn and there's so many ways to learn. And it's so much to learn that can be applied to you, right? So some of you might be poli-sci, some of you might be econ, some of you might be pre-med, some of you might be like dental. All of this stuff connects to me as a person in my life, right? So educate yourself in terms of LGBTQ identities and challenges and disparities, but also educate yourself in terms of LGBTQ medicine, LGBTQ economics, LGBTQ education, LGBTQ criminal justice. Like, educate yourself in all of these different fields and connect LGBTQ as just another like subject type that is pretty much woven through the fabric of everything else of life. Know the vocabulary. We just went through some vocabulary. It's a lot more. I'm not giving nobody a vocabulary quiz, but like I said, there's just some things that are appropriate and some that are not. The word tranny is inappropriate, right? So you're walking up to somebody, hey, that's completely inappropriate. Know the vocabulary. Challenge yourself. Whatever that looks like for you, you know where you might need to do a little bit more leaning in. So challenge yourself to lean in and to grow in that area, or to be a better support in this area. But also, as student leaders, challenge yourself to think of programs and ideas and initiatives that you could do to amplify the voices of LGBTQ people. Challenge yourself to come up with ideas to solve some problems, or like, ways to see how you can advance just like educating and informing people, or just changing hearts and minds. Be supportive. We spoke a little bit about that. Use inclusive language. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I haven't said like boys and girls, men and women, like any of that. It's like people, folks, y'all, right? Use language that includes everybody, because some people don't use the word boy or girl. Some people don't identify as boy or girl, right? Or man or woman. So if you're talking about this event is for all men and there's on campus, or this is a men's event and then the same day, same time, there's a women's event, we're the folks in the middle that don't identify as either. Your campus has just lost a population of people. Or there are going to be people who's not comfortable to go to either or they're going to go and not be comfortable, right? So like, let's use inclusive language, but let's also think about inclusive events. Mentor and sponsor LGBTQ students. I know a lot of times folks want to mentor folks who like, they see themselves or like, there's some kind of connection. It's like, oh, you remind me of this because, or you remind me of X, Y, and Z. But let's challenge ourselves to also like find that LGBTQ person who might not have a mentor on campus, who might be shy or, kind of like distant or don't feel as welcome on campus. Let's find that person and pull them in. Let's mentor and sponsor them and see where that can go and where that relationship can grow. We spoke about speak up and advocate for change, but the last one I'm gonna speak on right now is lead with your alliedness, right? Lead with your alliedness. So let people know you're an ally. Let people know why you're an ally. And let people also know that you don't have to be LGBTQ to be an ally. We discussed this. Let's skip that. So I'm gonna kind of like dive into this because I see we're short on time. But reimagine what campus looks like. That's what the charge is for all of you, right? Obama set a precedent when he was president by lighting up the White House in rainbow colors during Pride. Never been done before. Obama set a precedent. Probably won't be done again until a very long time. Don't know. But the picture down here is Prairie View A&M University in Houston, well, outside of Houston, Texas. They opened their LGBTQ resource center last year. They're the fifth one in the fifth HBCU in the country. Out of 100 HBCUs, only 5 of them have a designated space for LGBTQ people. We have to reimagine what our campus looks like. We have to reimagine what our events look like. We have to reimagine what solidarity and allyship looks like. We have to reimagine what being Black looks like. So engagement drives culture, right? It's beneficial to use the momentum from these large events, popular events, and mandatory events to change the culture. Obviously, in the time of COVID, this might be a little bit more difficult. However, just some things for you all to think about how and what we're talking about. We're talking about embedding allyship or just inclusion in general inside the culture of your campus. These are some activities, some ways that we can start to do that. New student orientation. Every new student should have an LGBTQ 101 or something like that, introduction or allyship training, something that's going to allow every student to step on that campus to automatically know that this is a place where we accept all people, no matter where you come from, who you love, how you look, none of that. We don't care, right? We're going to set that tone at the very beginning. We're going to introduce it. At new hire orientation and onboarding for staff, same thing. At moving day, same thing. Opening convocation, student leader training, just like you all in training right now. These are the moments where we're going to introduce and set the foundation. And then we're going to follow up throughout the year at homecoming, at athletic events, at other student organization weeks and things like that. We're going to make sure we're reinforcing it or following up. But then we're also going to reinforce again. Like it doesn't end with one or two of these things. Commencement, charter day, staff team meetings, diversity trainings. Like all of these opportunities are times for us to set the tone and begin to really change the culture, to pull people in, to change hearts and minds, but to really just have representation that shows this is a welcome campus. We want you here. You're safe here. You're loved here. We might not agree with how you live your life or what you do and, who you do or whatever. However, you're safe here. Your family. This is a place for all of us, right? I'm not going to ever tell anyone to love me because I'm gay if you believe the Bible says that I should be, an abomination. I'm not going to tell you that. I am going to ask you to respect me and love me because I'm a human, right? And because we're sharing space. And this space should be welcome for both of us to agree and disagree. Critical moments to take advantage of. Pride Month. It's hard because Pride Month is June. So I know a lot of people not on campus or whatever, but your campus could raise a pride flag for Pride Month. LGBTQ History Month is October. So that's a time that you all can really take advantage of. And some important dates, usually that fall within October, are some that's listed here. Post Night of Remembrance, that's the Pulse shooting that happened in Orlando a few years ago. Just commemorating that day, right? Like International Transgender Day of Visibility, International Transgender Day of Remembrance. Pride events. Like every city has pride events. And there's also Black pride events. So using these moments to kind of connect your campus or your organization, student government, whatever your platform is, just to show that you are an ally and you're actively engaging and supporting the community. Let me slide through these. So real quick, I'm just gonna like flash this stuff up because I see we're short for time. I do want to have answer any questions y'all might have. So just some things that y'all could do as individuals, right? Learn, don't be afraid to ask questions. Use your pronouns. So I asked y'all to introduce yourself with pronouns. That is starting to become like best practice, common practice around places because people are really starting to identify more like openly using different pronouns and different identities. So whenever I'm introducing myself, it's, hey, Rishard, I use he, him pronouns. How y'all doing? And that way I set the tone and other people follow me. Some people specifically, or particularly people in the South, are not as caught up to this yet, but it's becoming a thing. If you ever make a mistake, apologize, move on. It's not the end of the world, right? So if you call somebody the wrong name, call somebody the wrong pronoun, call somebody the wrong identity, any of that, it's not the end of the world, right? Yes, people might explode. That's just, usually internal things that they're dealing with. It's not necessarily you, but always apologize and move on. However, it's not okay to keep making the same mistakes. Other things you can do, add pronouns to your email signature and business cards. Some of y'all have business cards as student leaders or just personal students that you give out your cards. Even like LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that, you can add your pronouns, but specifically your email signature. So when you're emailing your classmates and your professors, they see it right by your name. If you have an office or in your room, whatever, have a symbol of support, right? A flag. Y'all can't see it. I have my flag on the side of my wall over here, but have a flag, a sticker, something in the space to show that you are like leaning into this. Allow students to put their names and pronouns on forms and documents. So like if you are someone in student government and you're collecting forms or whatever you're doing and you're collecting stuff and you have a name on it, allow people to put their pronouns on there too, right? Because small things like that change the minds. People see it and be like, I wonder why they put that. And then they start to replicate it. It becomes the culture. Diversify content and resources. A lot of times in our student offices, we have, posters and flyers and books and scholarships. Look around the room and really just think, does this reflect everybody on campus? And it goes beyond the LGBTQ. Do I have anything that reflects someone who might have a accommodation ability or a disability? Or like, does this reflect someone who does not look like me? Does this reflect someone who's gay? So just diversify your content. I know some organizations send out like lists of scholarships and different opportunities and internships and things like that. Search for LGBTQ related scholarships and internships. They exist. I have an intern from FAMU. So yeah, like look for these things, diversify. Continue to attend trainings. This is just a very first step. There's actually like ally programs and initiatives. And as student leaders, these are things that you could push to happen on your campus. Like you literally could ask me to come do an ally training for your campus. But these are things that we have to like lean into as student leaders. Avoid off-putting language, heterocentrism and cis sexism. So that's essentially asking people, like if someone was to walk up to me and be like, yo, you got a girlfriend? Avoid that, right? Because that instantly shuts me down because I'm gay. And now I'm like trying to figure out how I have to navigate this conversation. Because if I be like, no, I got a dude, then how are you going to respond? Like, what is that same engagement going to be? Or what comes next? And imagine if you are the student leader just talking to a random student and you walk up and ask that, and they were about to come tell you, oh, I have a problem with my professor calling me X, Y, and Z, right? So like just making sure we're thinking bigger and being as inclusive and welcoming for everybody as possible. Does anyone know what time this session actually ends? Because I'm not sure. You can just drop it in the chat for me. I think 12, okay. Did y'all not see these slides? Please tell me y'all saw these slides because nobody said anything. Did y'all see the slides? 12:20, okay, thank you, Alexa. So we can keep going. So, benefits of a diverse campus. So if you're someone who are either LGBTQ, an ally, whatever case it be, and you really want to lean into making your campus better for everyone, these are 4 of your strong selling points, right? This is why this needs to be done or should be done. 1, diversity contributes to expanding the knowledge base and promotes creative thinking. What does that mean? For any university, that sounds amazing, right? Because what I'm hearing from this is better academic performance, right? The second thing, the world is diverse and diverse college experiences lays the foundation for global perspective. We know the TSU wants to change the world. Every HBCU does, and every HBCU is doing it. And how we continue to do it is to prepare our students to go out and be global leaders, global thinkers, global leaders, right? Around the globe, it's very diverse. There are a lot of LGBTQ people, both in the country, but also around the world. We solve problems by working together, but also being diverse in our thinking, being inclusive and leading from a place of authenticity, allowing everyone to show up who they are and bring them full selves. Overall college satisfaction and better student experience. And what happens when you have a better college satisfaction and better student experience? More alumni giving, right? So people leave their campus satisfied and fulfilled. I left college, like with some bruises and scars. So it took me a while to be like, I'm gonna give my money back to Howard, right? I give now, but it took me a while. Imagine if I would have graduated and be like, oh, I love Howard. I had the best time ever because X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna start giving immediately. And it really makes a difference. There are some students who graduate immediately and start giving, and there's some who's like, I'm gonna wait a few years because TSU did me wrong. So that's the selling point, right? Campus is more attractive to diverse donors, partners, organizations, and opportunities. It's no secret, right? There are some campuses around the country, both HBCUs and non-HBCUs, that have amazing donors, amazing partners, organizations like Apple coming in and building Apple labs on their campus, right? Like people like Amazon trying to set up a whole Amazon like location in the city just because of a school. Now, granted, these aren't the best, companies in the world in terms of like racial justice things, but in terms of resources and leveraging power and ability, these are great partners to have that'll take any of our institutions to the next level. These places are not popping up on anti-LGBTQ campuses. Amazon and Apple and like these organizations and donors, people with money, they're going to give to the most diverse, most inclusive, most respectful and loving campus and welcoming campus because that's what their organization stands for, right? And the reality is a lot of our organizations and a lot of our like both student organizations, like or national organizations that we might be a part of, we all have our own challenges, but we're all working to essentially change the world and make it a better place from our perspective. So our campus has to make sure that we are able to position ourselves to allow these people to come in and do business with us. If we're not open or like inclusive and welcoming, they're not going to want to come. Everyone wins, right? Better campus, better people, better leaders, better world. So key influence of climate and culture change. This is no secret. We all know this. Within the organization or within your campus, there are people who literally drives this work. First, it starts with the leadership, right? And that's the staff, the administrators, but also the student leaders. Because the student leaders is, in my opinion, one of the biggest accountability measures for the staff. So if your staff is on board or not on board, student leaders on board. If they're both not on board, it's not going to happen until the student body come in and rally around and say, well, we're either going to change our student leadership or we're going to protest to change our staff leadership, right? Behind the student body, you need the alumni support because if alumni is not given, then nothing's happening. So you need to pull your alumni in. But then you also need community and campus partners and stakeholders. There's different, churches in our communities. There's different organizations, nonprofits. There's different small businesses who will literally rally around you and say, we want to see your campus more inclusive, so let's make it happen. But essentially, all of this is done through conversations and like personal interactions, getting to know each other, and just breaking down these barriers that exist, right? For so many people, there's, I don't even know any trans people, so I don't even want to think about that. Or I've never seen a trans person, so I don't think we need anything to accommodate trans students on campus. Or I'm Christian, so I don't talk like, none of that matters. We have to get to know each other on a one-on-one, human to human, person to person to make this happen. Let's do that one. Things your campus can do. SOGI, we talked about this, but a non-discrimination policy. So right now around the world or around the United States of America for a national law or a federal law, there is no national or federal law that protects people from being discriminated against because of their sexual orientation or gender identity and expression. Right now, in many parts of the country, people can be fired from their jobs, can be evicted from their homes, can be like literally like there's all of these different things that can happen, and there's no route that we could take to get justice, right? People can be fired for discriminating against me for being Black. You can be fired for that, or you can be sued for that, right? Like there's religious protections, there's racial protections, there's ability protections, but there's no LGBT protections. And we know that LGBTQ people are fired from their jobs so much or put out of their homes. Like all of these things happen on a regular basis. So we want to make sure that your campus doesn't allow that to happen. I actually did not check before the webinar or before the session if TSU has LGBTQ protections. I believe they do though. If anyone knows, you can drop it in the chat. If not, then I'll definitely look it up in 1 second and drop it in there so we know. But gender inclusive housing, making sure that everyone can live in a residence hall that they feel comfortable in, that aligns with their identity, and comprehensive sexual health programming, right? Like making sure that when we're doing these testings and, like these safe sex and all of these other conversations that we're having, making sure that it's inclusive of us, right? Like LGBTQ people, making sure that I feel myself included in the conversation and the information, because sex is not always between man and woman, right? And that also goes to like the posters in the student health center. When I walk into the student health center, I don't always want to see a man and woman on a poster about like an STD or something. Like there's other identities that also like engage in sex. So making sure that everything represents everyone. Collectively prepare and program for major dates. So as I mentioned on one of the other slides, Pride Month, LGBTQ History Month, World AIDS Day. Don't leave it up for the LGBTQ group to plan for these. Like they don't have to be the only one to do it, right? Like there are staff people on campus. There are other organizations. There's an SGA. Everyone is familiar with Pride at this point. Like we've all heard of Pride. We've all heard of Pride Month. We've all heard of National Coming Out Day at some point in our lives. So we know these things exist. So choosing not to ignore them, right? Now, I'm not saying run around here and start planning for these things 5 years in advance, but like mark your calendar. When you are planning your calendar for the semester of events, for things that your organization is going to do or SGA is going to do or you as an individual is going to do, make sure you also look up these days to make sure you're fully engaging and leaning into this space. And another thing is, well, that don't really apply here. That's more so for staff, sorry. So before we almost done, y'all. The program for everyone, essentially, program for everyone. When you're coming up with these great programs, and I know TSU has some great programs, we all having these events and stuff like that, whether it's virtual or in person. Program for everyone. Think of every possible person, every possible intersectional identity that someone can hold, and think and ask yourself, like, if they showed up, will they be welcome? Will they be safe? And how can I make them feel welcome or safe, right? And I'm not saying that, like, sit there and wreck your brain about every single thing. That's not what I'm asking. However, right, like just making sure that we're being as welcoming as possible for everyone. We're marketing to everyone. We're advertising to everyone. We're inviting everyone. We're partnering with everyone to get as much of a successful and welcome event as possible. Something else that can be done is incorporate LGBTQ curriculum in academic disciplines. This don't really apply to y'all as students, but it could if you're doing like a group project or something, right? Like consider how you can add some kind of LGBTQ connection to what you're working on, right? Like if there's a report on, pick a demographic of people and look up how the COVID pandemic has impacted their health. Look at LGBTQ folks in health, right? Or you want to look at economics, look at LGBTQ economics in times of COVID. Like there's ways to connect different demographics and different identities to the work that we're doing in terms of academics and research. And for the record, there's so much LGBTQ research that needs to be done. Like there's questions that people ask me all the time. It's like, I don't know, no one has ever researched that because people don't lean into this space of LGBTQ research, right? And for some of the same reasons that we already mentioned when we were talking about barriers. Highlight and elevate the stories of all and the experience of all students. So I know sometimes we're highlighting some of our members and we're talking about, the great things that X and X is doing, or why, whatever is going on. But making sure that some of these voices are some of our LGBTQ classmates, right? And don't be afraid to name it, especially if they're open about their identity. Don't be afraid to name that such and such is, a Black lesbian from Houston, Texas. Don't be afraid to say that if that's an identity that they own. However, if it's something that they don't fully own and it's not loud and proud about, then please don't ever do that. But that's also a way for you to engage further on that one-to-one and have a conversation with people. Collect sexual orientation and gender identity information. A lot of times we do surveys on campus asking people, your name, where you're from, your race, your age, all these other things. But if the survey is going to be confidential and anonymous, it's okay to ask sexual orientation and gender identity information. A lot of people, because what you're going to find, there's a lot of people on campus. The reality is there's a lot of people on campus who's not open about their sexual orientation or gender identity. So they'll probably just, mark whatever. But there are some people who are not necessarily not open. They just don't feel as welcome as comfortable because there's nothing that ever allows them to, highlight who they are. So there's an opportunity if you're doing a survey about X, or you are student government and you want to propose a new policy to add this to campus, but you need a specific demographic of people, and you don't know that there's this demographic of people that's there because you never asked the question, then this initiative never gets added. I was doing a training at one school with staff, and the lady literally told me, she was like, "Oh, we don't have that problem because we don't have gay people on campus." Y'all, I literally almost hit the floor. I almost died. I was like, "Excuse me." I said, "Sweetie, I was one of those people that you're thinking of right now that wasn't gay on campus 3 years of my undergrad experience, right? We're here. We just don't feel comfortable to let you know. How do we feel comfortable to let you know? Ask us, right? Show us that you're taking the steps to build programs and initiatives that include us." And the last thing is facilitate intergroup dialogue. What we know is that, conversations change things. Being able to discuss and share our perspectives allow us to learn. But intergroup dialogue, meaning between students and staff, between alumni and students, between alumni staff and students, facilitate these different groups, these conversations, because then you see older perspectives learning from the newer perspectives, right? You see people who were so anti starting to lean into the very pro and the advocate side, because they hear the experiences, or they might hear a voice or a way or a message in a way that they never heard it before. So facilitating these dialogues and these conversations allow, and this is more than just LGBTQ, this is everything. Having these conversations just allow you to stretch and grow and become a better leader. So are there any questions? Let me come out of here 1 second. Are there any questions? We have about 10 minutes left. Or anything we want to chat about, feel free. The chat is here. Also, I will be in the networking thing for about 20 minutes. If anyone want to have a one-on-one really quick or anything like that. I will also share, I believe y'all are getting a program book that has my contact information, but I'm going to drop that in the chat. This is my email. Y'all have my social media. But before I go, I do want to share 2 opportunities that we have that's coming up. Next slide. Okay. So I'm going to start with the one on the right, October 21st. So Wednesday, October 21st is our National HBCU Out Loud Day. This day is simply a day for us to raise awareness about the LGBTQ community and HBCUs. Essentially, this day, me, my supervisor, we both HBCU graduates, both LGBTQ people at HRC. We were sitting literally in our office one day and was like, hey, there's National Coming Out Day is very white. And all of the days that the LGBTQ commemorative days are very white. nothing really resonates with us as Black LGBTQ people. But also, even further, nothing as Black LGBTQ HBCU connected people. So we coined a day last year, HBCU Out Loud Day. And on this day, last year we had two different things. I was actually in Texas where they opened their LGBTQ center at Prairie View. And my supervisor was on Capitol Hill in DC, leading a briefing for like congressional staff members about how they could be more supportive of HBCU LGBTQ people. This year, the day is themed Vote Out Loud, and we're doing this cute little HBCU Out Loud Day box. I will drop the link 1 second in the chat for all of you to like sign up to get a box. But we're gonna be sending out like swag, like t-shirts and other things for folks to sign up and like participate and show their pride on this day. October 21st, it's an all-day thing. It's very large social media, so like using hashtags and just sharing pictures and things like that. But we're also asking students, whatever, if you can do an event on this day in commemoration of HBCU Out Loud Day, please do that. And we would love to amplify that on our social medias, on HRC social medias, just showing the world of all the connections between HBCU Out Loud Day. The second thing is our National HBCU Leadership Symposium. And this is November 10th through the 12th online. This is open to 75 LGBTQ students. And it's basically a connection between being Black in America right now with all of our racial uprisings and just fight for like justice and so many different avenues of life, mixed with LGBTQ rights and like the LGBTQ movement and where we need to be going as Black people, but also Black LGBTQ people. So the day is, it's 3 days. Each one is themed. So it's Protest Day, Policy Day, and Programs Day. It's going to be very powerful. And it's essentially we're taking our National HBCU Leadership Summit, which some of you may have heard of. That's what the video was earlier. I'll play that in 1 second. We're taking that online because COVID, we can't necessarily bring all the people together. So we're going to do it online, virtual for 3 days, expand it, include more students. So if you are someone who identifies LGBTQ and you're looking to be a change agent in terms of just Black Lives Matter type movement, but also the LGBTQ movement, then this opportunity is for you. And the website to apply or to get more information is right here in the red box. And I will drop both of the links in the chat though for you, just so you have them. Casey, if you're still on, which sorority is that? I hope you said the right one. Okay, that's the right one. Come on, SG, bro. That wasn't the right one, though, to be honest. In my head, I'm a Lady Adele Suit Theater Sorority Incorporated Alpha Chapter. In my head. What is the thing? It's HBCU Symposium. And Out Loud Day box. 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing that. Let me find this link for y'all. 1 second. Where is this link? Here we go. All right. So yeah, if there are no more questions, comments, concerns for the good of the group, please feel free to contact me through social media or email if you need me check out these links, request your HBC Out Loud box. It's a cute little t-shirt and some more stuff that you'll get. Just go and request that. Outside of that, I will be in a networking event until about 1:30, or the networking app until about 1:30. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, we can do a one-on-one there, or you can definitely reach out to me. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it.